This is Contracts, Common Law Option Contracts, and I am Professor Scott DeVito. Let's begin. Today, students will understand how a basic common law option contract is created, how option contracts interact with the mailbox rule, and how the power to accept the offer that is the subject of an option contract lapses or terminates. First, let's begin with the very basic definition of an option contract. In an option contract, what is exchanged is something of value, think money, goods, services, etc., for a promise to hold open another offer for some period of time. And let's give an example of that. So you have John here, and John says, "Diana, I just love your condo and the keys. Any chance you'd sell it?" Diana replies, "I would sell it to you for $400,000. You'll notice that what John is doing is inviting an offer, while Diana is making an offer to sell. She's going to sell that condo. John says, "Ouch, can I think about that?" Diana, and this is the typical situation, has something where she can't sort of keep it open, and John wants to be able to keep it open. So Diana responds, "I have other people interested, so I can't really hold it for you." John really wants to make sure that he has a chance to get this condo, so what he does is he makes an offer. "Look, I'll pay you $500 if you hold the offer open until Friday so I can check with my banker." Diana says, "Okay." We've now got an offer from John to enter into a contract in which Diana's offer to sell the condo is held open until Friday. That's the option contract offer. Diana then accepts the option contract, and we create the option contract there. So if you look at this more diagrammatically, you'll notice that we've got an offer to pay $500 to keep the offer to sell the condo for $400,000 open until Friday. Then you've got acceptance of the offer to pay $500 to keep the offer to sell the condo for $400,000 open until Friday. That top bubble is the option contract, and the subject of that option contract is the offer to sell the condo for $400,000. The option contract is formed. The other contract is not formed because there's just still an offer. You need an acceptance to form it. You can see this more different diagrammatically here. You've got $500 exchanged for a promise to keep an offer open, and that offer is listed below. So the top part, you have the option contract, and it's about that offer to sell the condo for $400,000. On Thursday, John says, "Diana, I accept your offer to sell me the condo," and she says, "Excellent." We've now got acceptance of the offer to sell the condo. At this point, we've got two contracts formed. The first one was $500 exchanged for the promise to keep the offer open, which was, of course, exchanged for the $500. But now, right there, we've got the condo offer, sell the condo for $400,000, accepted for $400,000. So we've got two contracts formed at this point. Now you might ask, well, when does John's power to accept that internal offer lapse or terminate? And let's pop back a couple of slides. Remember, when there's just this option contract out there, that contract is formed. The $500 and the promise to keep the offer open create that contract. So what we're talking about is the power to accept the offer to sell the condo for $400,000. Not the option contract acceptance, because that's already happened. We're talking about the other offer. So what we have to think about is that John already has that contractual duty to pay Diana $500,000 under the option contract, while Diana has a contractual duty to keep her offer to sell the condo open until end of day Friday. So they've each got those duties already locked in. So the duty we're talking about, or the right we're talking about, is to buy the condo. So John can cause his power to accept Diana's offer to sell the condo to lapse simply by not accepting it by end of day Friday. John's duties are only the ones he has under the option contract. Those duties are simply to pay $500. If he's done that, or if he's even promised to do that, he's formed the contract and he doesn't have to do anything else. But John could cause his power to accept Diana's offer to sell the condo to terminate by acting in a way that discharges Diana's contractual duty to perform. And I'm going to pop back a slide here. Notice here we're talking about lapse, just goes away. But here we're talking about terminate, John's actions that bring that power to accept to an end early. And the way you do that is by acting in a way that discharges Diana's contractual duty to perform. We've not talked at all about discharge, so if you're not knowing what that means, that's perfectly reasonable. But you can look at the second illustration, the restatement second of contracts, section 37, as an example of that. And there it says, Joan leases land to Smith, giving Smith an option to purchase the land for $10,000 in cash during the term of the lease. Jones receives an offer from Carbuncle to purchase the land, and so informs Smith. Smith states that she will not exercise the option, and John conveys the land to Carbuncle. Smith's power to exercise the option is terminated. So keep in mind, when we start to talk about discharge of contractual duties, you're going to have to relink that back to your option contract thoughts, because you're going to be able to terminate the power of acceptance to the option contract if John, in this case, acts in a way that discharges the other party. Now, how do option contracts work in conjunction with the mailbox rule? Normally, when an offer itself or the circumstances don't prohibit acceptance by the mail, the offer is accepted the moment you properly dispatch an acceptance by mail. But that is not how it works with option contracts. And here you can see that in Restatement Second of Contracts, Section 63B. And that tells us if you accept an offer under an option contract, in our case, the offer to sell the condo, by properly dispatching an acceptance, the acceptance is not effective upon dispatch. Rather, it is effective upon receipt. So look here again, we've got our original option contract formed, but we haven't accepted the offer to sell the condo. The mailbox rule does not apply to acceptance of the offer to sell the condo. Once you've got that acceptance going out there, if you accept via proper dispatch, your acceptance of the offer to sell the condo is going to be effective only upon receipt, not upon dispatch, because the mailbox rule doesn't apply to that acceptance. Now, Restatement Second of Contracts 63B, comment F, tells us the rationale for this, and I've produced it below in part. The basic idea is that option contracts are subject to a definite time limit, and the usual understanding is that the notification that the option has been exercised must be received by the offeror before that time. Think of it this way. If I'm going to sell you land and I say you can accept my offer to sell this condo for $400,000 if you make an acceptance before Friday at 5 p.m. If you, in our example, John, could at 4:55 drop an acceptance in the mailbox, you have worked an extension of time. I'm going to have to worry that you've put something in the mail. So I'm going to have to artificially extend out the deadline to make sure I don't sell the land Saturday morning to somebody else, receive your acceptance on Monday, and now have two contracts to sell the same piece of land. So that time limit's on purpose, and we don't want to artificially extend it out through the mailbox rule. Notice that this comment makes clear that it is talking about accepting the offer that is subject of the offer. So the option, in our case, buying the condo. Thus, if the circumstances of the language don't forbid it, you could accept the offer to enter into an option contract by proper dispatch with acceptance at dispatch. But I would watch out. An option contract has a deadline for a reason, and the circumstances are likely to move the offer to enter into an option contract out of the scope of the mailbox rule. So let's just put this into the context of John and Diana's contract. So John says to Diana, hey, if I give you $500, could you hold this option open until Friday? Now, if that's on Monday, those circumstances are going to make it pretty clear, especially since Diana said she's got other deals going on, that that's likely not to be acceptable by the mailbox rule. I mean, you can drop your acceptance in the mail, but it probably will only be effective upon receipt, not upon dropping it in the mail. But let's switch it up. Imagine on January 1st, John says, hey, would you keep your offer to sell the condo open until the 30th? And Diana says, well, let me think about that. And then the next couple of days later, she drops the acceptance of John's offer to pay $500 to keep the offer to sell the condo open in the mail. Well, in those circumstances, you could argue that putting it in the mail is an acceptable way to accept the offer, and therefore acceptance occurs upon dispatch. But be careful, that doesn't mean that then the option underlying it can be accepted via mail. John can't at 4:55 on the 30th drop an acceptance in the mail and expect that it was accepted at the moment he dropped it in the mail. This has been Contracts, Common Law Option Contracts. I am Professor Scott DeVito. Thank you.